Well, I will be very quick then, but thank you, Mr. Perez. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to make sure to have all of us do a quick introduction around the table. I know we're going to have a great roundtable discussion today. Let's see if maybe we can go ahead and hit the end here. We'll kind of work our way around. If we could all use the microphone to make sure that the cameras can pick us all up.
Hello, greetings. My name is Lisa Magana. I am a political science professor from the School of Transborder Studies. I am also Associate Dean of Strategic Charter Initiatives at ASU in the college. And a couple of years back, I was Provost Fellow for HSI Initiatives.
Good morning and welcome. Warm welcome from Tempe, literally warm welcome. Rosa Anchowski, City Manager for the City of Tempe, resident over 30 years in this great city, and an employee of over 31 years. Warm welcome again.
I guess we're going to keep saying warm welcome. My name is Burdetta Hodge. I'm Council Member Burdetta Hodge from Tempe, also / Governing Board Member, proud Governing Board Member of 8 years for Tempe Union, longtime residents, all schooling, all the way up to Forks Up through the City of Tempe.
Hi, my name is Doreen Garland. I am the Vice Mayor of the City of Tempe, and I am also a member of the Navajo Nation.
John Giles, proud mayor of the next door neighbor to Tempe, Mesa. Tom, I don't know if you guys know this, but Tom knows about as much about Arizona as anybody in this room. Given his prior service in the Justice Department and for a lot of other reasons, he knows a lot. Don't feel like you need to explain Maricopa County to Tom. I'm in meetings with him here frequently. So Tom, welcome back to your second hometown of Arizona. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate all it's great for Arizona to have a strong advocate for our region just a few steps away from the Oval Office.
And Corey Woods, Mayor of the great city of Tempe.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll send it around and I'll start out.
Good morning, Max Gonzalez. I'm a Chicanos por la Causa. I'm a native of Tempe, used to skateboard on the campus of ASU, and hopefully someday I'll be able to skateboard again on the campus.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Martin Garcia. I'm the president of our Chicano Latino Faculty Staff Association at Arizona State. I also serve as the assistant director at Career Services, overseeing all of our support for underrepresented groups all across the university and career support. Thank you for organizing this and welcome.
Good morning.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. I'm Amalia Payares. I'm Vice Provost for Inclusive Excellence at ASU. President Michael Crow and Provost Nancy Gonzalez send their apologies for not being able to make it, but I've been Vice Provost for the last year, and I'm a resident of Tempe.
Good morning, bienvenidos. Vanessa Fonseca Chavez, 8-year resident of the city of Mesa. And I'm located at the ASU Polytechnic campus. I'm the Associate Dean of Inclusion and Student Success. I also serve on the HSI Provost Council along with Lisa Magana, led by Amalia Payares.
Good morning. Arlene Chin, Tempe City Council, and I also work for the ASU Foundation.
Hi, good morning. I'm going to try to manifest cooler weather and say I'm not quite so warm welcome to Tempe. I am also a Tempe City Council person. I've lived in Tempe for about 26 years, but I'm a transplant from Louisiana.
Wow. Well, good morning. Buenos días. Me llamo Tomás Pérez. Yo soy dominicano, pero nací aquí en los Estados Unidos. It is an honor to be with all of you and to be back here in Maricopa County. And Mayor, thank you for opening up your wonderful city here. You know, when I look around the room, Mayor, at all of your colleagues, it is the city of firsts. You know, the first black mayor, the first black female member of the council, the first Native American member of the council, the first Asian American member of the council, it is a city of firsts. And I know I've probably left somebody out in that. And this is America. And it's just so remarkably exciting to see that diversity reflected in your leadership. I have spent a lot of time in Maricopa County. um, I don't know where to start on that, but I will start with the good because it's been an honor to get to know so many elected leaders in this county over the course of many years in public service. My current job, I'm a senior advisor to President Biden and the head of our Office of Intergovernmental Affairs here at the White House. And in that capacity, I get to work with mayors and county officials and governors. And in that capacity, I've gotten to know both Mayor Woods and Mayor Giles very well. Your new airport in Mesa is remarkable. And given the incredible growth here in Arizona, it is truly amazing to see what is happening. I've also, in the Obama administration, spent a lot of time because your former sheriff gave us a lot of work. And I'll just leave it at that because I don't think I need to say much more about it because my father, who died when I was 12, taught me a few words about people like Sheriff Arpaio, but I'm not going to repeat the words that I learned from him, other than to say I am glad that chapter is in the rearview mirror, and it was a privilege to work with others on SB 1070. And I want to say to all of you, I really appreciate, these are challenging times right now, to state the obvious, and I really appreciate the moral courage of all of you to step up. I've had the privilege not only of working on the sheriff's office, but we did a lot of voting work here. And one of the cases I remember the most arose out of a law that was passed to make it very hard for Native Americans and Latinos to vote in this state, the so-called ballot harvesting law. And when you live in the Navajo Nation, there are folks who have to drive 2 hours to get to a mailbox if they have a car. And there was no subtlety about what was being attempted in that piece of legislation. And when I was at the Civil Rights Division and led the division, we were able to stop that law from going into effect. But then in 2013, the Supreme Court issued a decision that neutered the heart and soul of the Voting Rights Act, Section 5, and it gave a green light for Arizona to come back and pass that law that has made it a lot harder for folks, not only in Indian country, but folks right here in Metro Phoenix to cast their vote and to make sure those votes are counted. So I do come here with a little bit of history, and in those moments where you see these efforts to make it harder for people to participate, I'm always inspired by the people around this table. And it's not only our elected officials, but I've had the privilege of working with Max and their team at CPLC on a number of issues, and you're continuing to hold proud the tradition of Cesar Chavez and so many others to make sure that there's voice. And that's what today is about. It's about voice. Because today is the first day of a special week to honor and help us reflect on Hispanic serving institutions. The president is very proud, and the vice president is very proud of the fact that they have made historic investments in HSIs. $15 billion, billion with a B. And you look at the growth, now 500 HSIs across the country. I've got to believe that ASU's, if it's not the biggest, it's in the top 2 in terms of Hispanic serving institutions. And what's equally a point of pride is that 40% of HSIs are community colleges across the country, whether it's in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania or in so many of the counties here in Maricopa County and across the state. Community colleges for so many families and communities are that ticket to upward mobility. That's their first foray into higher education. And I'm quite confident that you have scores of people matriculating at ASU who began their journey in various community colleges, not only here in Maricopa County, but across the state. And that's what pipelines are for. And that's what other programs are like the TRIO program, which is a program designed to help first-gen kids get the tools and experiences they know to be able to matriculate and thrive in colleges. And the thing about it, just to connect the dots of all of this, is I'm hard pressed to think of a state that has more growth, economic growth on the horizon. There's not a state in the country that has 2 chip manufacturing facilities that are ready and moving forward, employing thousands of workers in jobs that are going to be solid middle class jobs, like $100,000 a year jobs. And given your obvious commitment in Mesa and Tempe and across this county to making sure we have inclusive growth, and I love the Vice Provost for inclusive excellence. That word before excellence is a very important word, and that's what the president and the vice president have been about, because day one of their administration, the president and the vice president understood that while we were in the throes of a pandemic and so many challenging moments, whether it's just addressing the pandemic, addressing the recession that was pandemic induced, they also understand, as you all do, history. Moments of gravest crisis are also moments of gravest opportunity. And so, I had the privilege of being your labor secretary, and I had the privilege of leading the Civil Rights Division. The laws we enforced, slight overstatement, at the Civil Rights Division were by and large a product of the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s. The laws we enforced at the Labor Department when I was your labor secretary were by and large, again, slight overstatement, a function of the New Deal in the 30s. The 2 most tumultuous decades of our 20th century were also the 2 decades in which we made the greatest investments in our social compact, whether it was Social Security, whether it was Medicare and Medicaid, whether it was the Civil Rights Acts of 64, 65, 68. So Medicare and Medicaid, by the way. These were those moments, and we're living in another one of these moments right now. And the reason we're having this week to mark the importance of Hispanic serving institutions is day one, the president and the vice president, they issued an executive order on equity because they understood that we could do big things. And this would be a moment to do big things. And we are doing big things. Some things are buildings, like the Mesa Airport. Other things are these investments in human capital, which is what we're talking about today. These investments are going to pay dividends for decades to come, because this is one of those moments. And the reason I am excited to be here is because you've all recognized that this is one of the historic moments where we need to meet the moment, and we need to do so in an inclusive manner that's consistent with the president and vice president's executive actions of day one. And that's exactly what you're doing. So today, I'm really looking forward to hearing more from all of you about what's happening in Tempe and in Mesa, and how has these investments in HSIs impacted the community, and not only what has been working well, but what's the unfinished business, because this is not simply a day to reflect and spike footballs. That's not why we're here. We're here to reflect and redouble our efforts to make sure that these investments can sustain themselves for literally years and decades to come. So I am really, really excited to be here. And, Mayor, I'd love to just turn to the two mayors, if we could, at the outset, just to, give your initial thoughts on how this HSI initiatives have enabled the growth of both Tempe and Mesa.
Well, I appreciate it. I would say one of the biggest things that as mayor, I get very excited about with my council is the fact that we've got great educational organizations in the city, such as Arizona State University and the Maricopa Community Colleges system, along with 3 incredible school districts. And the great thing is we have a population that's roughly about 25% Latino in the city of Tempe. But we recognize that in terms of the investments that are being made are helping our Latino population, but frankly, all of our populations move forward when it comes to academic achievement, opening up and being supported when it comes to small business growth. We really are a community that does value our diversity. I mean, as you talked about in your opening statements, looking around the table, I mean, it's clearly very much evidence of that. But we also, as an example, statewide, there's a goal called Achieve 60, which is trying to make sure that roughly about 60% of the students who are graduating have the ability to go on to college or university success. In Tempe a few years ago, during the 4 years I was actually off the council at that point adopted an Achieve 65 goal, because their goal was trying to make sure that we went even over and above what the state was actually doing, given the fact that we have these exceptional educational institutions right here in our backyard with their main hubs in the city of Tempe. So, from our perspective, the investments that have been made from the Biden-Harris administration have really done an incredible job here in our community, and we wouldn't have been able to make some of the advances that we have if we didn't have a president and vice president who obviously very much care about our Latino Hispanic community, but also care about all of our different communities and care very much about equity. So I view the priorities and the goals of the Biden-Harris administration as being very much in alignment with what the city of Tempe is about now and has always been about. But I know that all of the advances we've made in the last 3.5, nearly 4 years would not have been possible without the support of the White House and without the teams that regularly communicate with myself, the members of our council, our city manager, and her team. So I couldn't be any more proud to be mayor of the city, but without a supportive federal government and a supportive administration, it would have been a lot harder, if not impossible, to have made a lot of the advancements that we've made. So I'm just very proud to be sitting here with you, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Giles.
Thank you, Mayor Woods. Mesa and Tempe have a lot in common. We are, Tom, as you travel, the large metros in the country, I know typically you see a lot of competition in those metros between surrounding communities, and sometimes it's civil and sometimes it's less than civil. But one of the things that's unique about this part of the country is that we are very collaborative, and when we gather together in regional governments, there is very little infighting. And when something good happens in Tempe or in Chandler, I know that that's great news for Mesa. And so it has been a very collaborative environment here, and working in this area as well. Mesa Community College, for example, has been an HSI, I think, since 2017. I think it's one of the largest feeders into the ASU system. ASU Poly and now Downtown Mix, obviously huge parts of the Mesa education ecosystem. One of the differences that Mesa has from Tempe is that Tempe is really an overachiever when it comes to higher education attainment, partly because it's the world's largest university is here, but that's not the case in Mesa. We underperform when it comes to higher education attainment. So this has been something that we have been very intentional about trying to get better at, and made some significant investments, college promise programs, inviting ASU to have a larger presence in our downtown, inviting other universities, Benedictine University, a great Catholic institution, to be part of our downtown. Very much in an attempt to, and the great thing about Benedictine, let me put a plug in for them, during the time that there's been restrictions on Dreamers receiving in-state tuition, they very much embraced that community, and a lot of good things. Vast majority of their population are Latino kids, many of them who were Dreamers. So again, it's been very intentional that the progress that's been made here, reaching out to the Latino population. Mesa is a third Hispanic, and we embrace that, and we love it. It's the biggest event of the year in Mesa, Arizona is our Dia de los Muertos Festival. We get about 40,000 people come out in a weekend. And so, again, we very much appreciate what HSI has meant to Mesa, the relationship between ASU, the opportunity that it gives institutions like Mesa Community College to have the additional resources to target and to be very intentional about serving those who we think will be very responsive.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Max, I wanted to turn to you because one thing I know is that thriving communities are a joint venture between leaders in the public sector, leaders in the corporate sector, leaders, local government, state government, our federal partners, and then our nonprofit anchors. And CPLC has been an anchor for many decades, dating back to its founding by Cesar Chavez and others over 50 years ago. And as you watch the remarkable growth here in Arizona in not just HSIs, but also just in the community itself and in the job opportunities that require more than a high school degree, not necessarily a college degree, but certainly more than a high school degree. How has CPLC been positioning itself to continue to be that leader?
Thank you for that question, Tom. Yeah, CPLC, by the way, has been around for 57 years now, I believe. That's what we're going to be celebrating next year. It's a really fun organization, a cool organization. One of the things that we do is we have a great partnership with Arizona State University. We provide about 60-plus scholarships on an annual basis, targeting the Latino population. We also partner with Maricopa Community College District and providing scholarships and opportunities there as well. We just started expanding around the state. I know the focus here is on Tempe and ASU, but we did create a similar partnership with those people down south, and as well as Northern Arizona University. We have a good relationship there, one that's growing. So we're trying to provide that throughout the state. But one of the things that as we work with businesses and we work with different community leaders, the one thing that we need to emphasize when we're talking about this investment in the Hispanic community as we try to increase educational attainment is that really there's a business imperative that's here. And I know often we hear that's the right thing to do, but the reality is an investment in the Latino population is really an investment in Arizona's economic future. That is the workforce of the future. If we want a strong workforce here, a prepared workforce, we need to invest in the segment that does it. Now, I happen to be a member of that segment that's benefiting, but the reality is it's more than that. It's about the entire community, and that's the way I think we need to position this and look at in this investment as for ASU being an HSI.
Absolutely. I mean, every employer, I still have a habit of talking to employers a lot. You talk to employers a lot. I ask them, what keeps you up at night? Easily the number one answer, workforce. We have opportunity as long as the eye can see. And I'm just really, really worried that we don't have the workforce to enable us to meet our very ambitious goals. And so I think you've nailed that. I'd love to turn to our academic partners, and I'll open it up to all of you. My oldest daughter is named Amalia, so I do have a little bit of a, they say Amelia? No, Amalia. Okay. Yeah, you've been called that once or twice.
Can I start with
sure.
high school first?
Yeah.
Because I have, and then we'll get to the college part.
No problem.
Because I want to address something that I just came from a state as my asthma, and that's Arizona School Board Association. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about this. This was one of the main conversations of the pocket of our students. And when we look at it, the test scores, it's always the three bottom tiers are Hispanics, Native American, African American. Mm-hmm. And this is something that is always glossed over because we have the smaller percentages, and like Tempe
Yeah.
is never going to be able to see it because we have our percentages of the minority students
Right.
are lower than the ones that are higher. So when
Right.
you look at our test scores, it always looks like we're doing better than what we are doing great, but it's different pockets. You know, our Hispanics, our Native American, African Americans are always at the bottom tier, less likely to go to college, less likely to graduate. I'm just concerned that because when we look at the city of Tempe, we say, oh my God, Tempe's always at the top. We're doing great, but we're not looking at those bottom tiers enough. And as governing board members, this is one of our biggest concerns is that we're not addressing it. I've been there 8 years, and this is the biggest conversation we have every single year. How are we going to bring up the test scores? How are we going to make sure that the pockets of kids that are most affected or most likely to be in poverty, most likely to have the prison to preschool pipeline are not being addressed? And this is a conversation that that's why I want to have it right now. This is a great time to have this conversation is because we look at this and I love patting ourselves on the back, but it also makes me go to bed at night with angst every night because I know that we're graduating students every year that are not ready for the workforce.
Well, you got ahead of me, but this is important because one of the questions I was going to ask all
I'm
of
sorry.
you was what keeps you up at night?
And this is what keeps me up.
And you've already answered that question,
Yes.
Bernetta, and I would say that regrettably, you're not giving out data.
No.
I mean, this is still the unfinished business of America, frankly.
Yes,
You know,
it
the
is.
legacy of Brown versus Board is a legacy that continues to be felt in so many ways, shapes, and forms. The number of community college presidents I speak to who tell me that, you know, the amount of remediation we have to do at the outset so that we can get a baseline, and you know, I'm sure one of you will talk about that. You know, that's one of the challenges. But you got to meet people where they are.
Yes.
And so those investments are critical. But how do we dream a world and execute a world where we're not having such high percentages of people coming in, you know, who really need that basic remediation? And that's a broader conversation about, frankly, public investments in pre-K to 12 education, which we could spend all day on here. And I'm looking at your body language, and I know you have thoughts.
I'm not going to take over.
I'm really glad you brought that up. And you know, I like discussions that are sort of organic. So I'm glad you did that because that actually is, it's an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And we've got to make sure we put those
And I'm
in
going
the
to
center.
address that elephant in the room, every room I'm in.
And that's what I appreciate about you. So anyway, let's.
ASU.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I'll get started and then give it to some of my colleagues. So, Director Bettis, you were talking earlier about the numbers in ASU, and I just want to say that we are since fall 2023, at almost 17,000 Hispanic students, almost 27% of the ASU undergraduate population. That makes us fourth in the country in terms of raw numbers. But actually, if you add our digital component, which is 14,000, making us the third campus in emerging HSIs, right? So in itself, the digital, that would put us at around 30,000, which is actually only the only university that has more is Florida International University. So in terms of just the numbers, and we feel a huge sense of responsibility. Of course, we've had a dramatic, in the last decade, increase in Hispanic students. But for us, it's really important to not just be enrolling, but to have really, really good outcomes in graduation, completion, and that's something that we want to work. In addition to all the different grants and programs we have, connecting with high schools and preparation for high schools and all kinds of STEM programs we've been engaging in, and in innovative fields. We love innovation, inclusive learning. We really do want to learn and partner more on what else we can do. I think in the last few years, we've articulated even better with community colleges. So we feel really strongly that it is our responsibility and our mission to do even better. We're particularly proud of being number 5 in something that to us is even more important, which is graduation rate. 5 in the country among the HSIs that are R1 universities, right? So, and when I talk about Florida International, I'm also comparing us to R1 universities. And we also think this is something we don't do alone. We are part of, we have the Seal of Excelencia from Excelencia in Education. We are also partners with the Hispanic serving R1 universities. And so forth. We have an HSI advisory council, which Lisa Magaña was very engaged in, with our HSI fellow before I came to the university. So we are doing a lot of different things, and we want to continue to do more and to engage with community more. So, I don't know, Martin, you want to?
Thank you, Dr.
I'd like
Payares.
if I could
Oh,
get
yeah,
a little
sure.
more data on, from Martin or whomever, on the percentage of first-gen students.
50% of our Hispanic students are first gen.
And I'll just add, I mean, I think it's kind of incredible to be at this table right now as someone who has gone to college in Tempe, grew up in Mesa, going to Mesa Public Schools, moved out to Santan Valley and seen the growth of the Polytechnic campus. I'm a first-generation high school graduate, first-generation college student, and I've only been able to be successful because of the communities that I found at my universities, at my colleges, Maricopa and ASU. And so it's incredible right now to be the president of an organization like the Chicano Latino Faculty Staff Association that creates spaces, creates opportunities for not just students, right? We've been an organization that's been around for over 54 years, and has been one of the starters of things like the Hispanic Convocation at ASU, champions for professors who are seeking tenure. We are coming up on our 25th anniversary of our Dr. Laura I. Rendon Scholarship, funding dozens of students who have come through and made a huge impact. So it's been really great to see not just the coaching, the mentoring that comes with organizations through like CLFSA, but where the community, right? Being able to connect professors with other experts, community leaders who are not just identifying the problems, but creating solutions to those issues as well.
I'd be curious for many of you as we move over, how have the the Biden-Harris administration's investments in HSIs, if you look at just the quantity and quality of investments, like 5 years ago and now, it's significantly more. And how have you used those resources, and how is it being felt? That's a question for any of you.
Public student loan forgiveness. Thank you for that.
Yes.
I think as I'm originally from rural New Mexico, and I think a lot of the challenges for our rural Latinx Hispanic communities are access to universities. And once that access happens, navigating the institution is really difficult. For our Native and Latino students, what we're finding is that our students don't feel a sense of belonging on campus. And so as a humanist, I'm really invested in figuring out how can we cultivate spaces of belonging? How can we encourage educational attainment for families from rural communities? This is an issue in Arizona. This is an issue throughout the Southwest. I'm at the ASU Poly campus. We've grown our enrollment this semester by 1,000, and we're growing even more. We have a new School of Advanced Manufacturing coming in with the College of Engineering. My college, the College of Integrated Sciences and Arts, is focused on career-connected learning. And one of the ways we've been able to do this is by providing flexible internship opportunities for our students through a new program called Emerging Professionals. We are partnering with the Mesa Chamber of Commerce. And that's been a really fruitful program for our Latinx students who, one, don't have the flexibility in their schedules to be able to take a 9-to-5 internship, and who also don't have the luxury of having unpaid internships. And so we are creating a lot of flexible opportunities for those students. About 75% of the students in the program are Latinx. Back to kind of the building the community, it's really nice to know that at the regional, state, national level, that the Biden-Harris administration is focused on building communities, building them back together. And one of the really great examples I have for the ASU Poly campus is that Martina and I got to know each other just serendipitously because there's a lack of Latinx representation for faculty and staff on the ASU Poly campus. And so we happened to find each other. We created Community Over Tacos, of course. If anyone wants a recommendation for the best taco shop in Mesa, we have that for you. But that led to a group we called Polisol, and our motto is the sun always rises in the east, because we're out in the Far East Valley. And we've created a faculty and staff contingency of Latinx folks who are committed to supporting our students and different initiatives on the campus. That led to the formation of the first Latinx student group at the Poly campus called Hola. And then we are far behind the Dia de los Muertos that the city of Mesa holds, but we are in our third year of hosting a celebration at the Polytechnic campus. Again, as a humanist, qualitatively, it's very nice to hear Latinx students and community members come up and say, I've never seen myself represented on this campus before. I'm really happy that we're doing this. And that event has grown from 75 attendees to over 200 in the past few years. The last thing I'll mention is that a colleague and I, Dr. Rafael Martinez, have just officially launched a Latinx Oral History Lab out of the ASU Polytechnic campus. His work with the City of Chandler and City of Mesa have been kind of uncovering those stories of Latinx residents over time and how Latinx residents of Chandler and Mesa have helped over time to build the story of those cities. My work is mostly in Apache County, which is another kind of Hispanic Latinx contingency, mostly rural, facing lots of issues with water, with economic security, and so we're looking at some of those questions as well.
Thank you.
I guess.
Yes.
This working? Okay. You know, I think about something a student told me a few years back. I did a focus group with Latino students. And this idea of ASU is, one of the students said, I wish it was Hispanic Heritage Month all year round. Because this is that particular time when Hispanic students feel special or seen. And I've always thought about that. And so I think ASU, we've done a really excellent job, not just getting the number of students, because it's not that, but thinking about the student experience. Do they feel included? And you know, that includes Hispanic Research Center. That includes different parts of, not just thinking about, you talk about workforce. So thinking about what does the workforce mean if you have Latinos, and what special skills do you bring to the workforce? We think about these kind of ideas. And what's the learning experience? So thinking about teaching, thinking about the inclusiveness of teachers and what are they thinking about when they're teaching these students. I said teaching too many times, but to think about it holistically, not just the number of students. And we start at the K through 12. We start at Mother's Daughters program. We start with the camp migrant worker students that are coming to ASU. We think about all different ways. And I would say that we've had conversations about this. One thing that we need to do better is thinking about Latino students that are virtual learners, how we best can make them included as an ASU student, as a Latino student. And that's the reality, right, is that more and more students are taking at least half of their classes virtually. But what are the inadequacies or the inequities if you are, and you are a Latino student? And to be thinking about how better to address these issues, because that's, you know, the traditional student is no longer what we think about anymore. So there's a lot of challenges, but I do think ASU, we have a really great narrative about all the different things that are HSI, ASU related. And I would add what you mentioned is that we are part of the Hispanic Research University. It's a consortium. There's about 20 some universities that are Research One, but are also HSIs. And so thinking about scholarships, thinking about increasing the number of Latino PhDs is important, and then subsequently more Latino faculty. So there's a whole kind of starting from kindergarten to PhD, postdocs, all of these. I think ASU's really been really good about this.
And very quickly to your question, Director Perez, we have several NSF grants that we've been able to obtain over the last few years that have to do with internships, experiential education, STEM scholarship, inclusive teaching. All these are back to your question about the funding. in the administration and how that has supported some of our initiatives.
Excellent. Rose, you look like you wanted to say something.
Director Perez,
Professor.
thank you for
Please
the
call
question.
me Tom. We'll save a lot of time.
Okay. Tomas.
Tomas. Okay, I
Tomas.
can do that too.
Tomas.
See.
In answering your question about what the Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration, going back to your original points when you welcomed us, I think we can talk about disaggregated data. We can talk about all the initiatives that are mutually organization working with Chicanos, with MATS for years. Remember that I have been in this business of local government for over 3 decades, so I do remember Arpaio and other things that have gone on in our state, and that we're a resilient city,
Yes, you
county,
are.
state, and we always search for the opportunities in those crises, and we came together, collaborating as mayors, collaborating as private nonprofit organizations, but more importantly, what the administration has done is taught others about the importance of local government and its power, and communicating with local governments about what they know, boots on the ground, grassroots. You know, Mayor Bloomberg once said that he invests in local governments through What Works Cities and Bloomberg Organization Philanthropies because he understands that power. And I learned that through our work through being a data-driven city, and Tempe, top notch. I can tell you, innovation and technology and fire science and public safety, all the things that are important, back to basics of why local government exists. But the administration, courageous leadership, because I can present to you disaggregated data, and if you don't want to look at it, you won't look at it, right? And you won't invest in those local governments. So back to this mayor and council, I'm at the tail end of public service. I'm not going to be here forever. So I can say that this diverse council, their partnerships with our sister cities, with nonprofits, has been the game changer in how we serve the public. Because people need to see themselves in those leadership roles. They need to know that those individuals are making courageous decisions about how you're using their public funds, and remembering what it feels like to be an immigrant, like myself, daughter of 2 Cuban immigrants who didn't have a college education, but invested in education for their kids in hope that they would give back to a community. So if I may humbly speak to someone who has been on both sides of this, it's a pleasure to have you come to a local government and ask the question to find out at this level, what are we seeing, what are we hearing, what do we want to see more of, what do we want to see less of, and hopefully moving forward. I always ask that because that's important, it's tangible, and putting thought to action. And for me, that is imperative for success. Thank you.
Thank you. Arlene?
Yes, I was debating, but I'm going with it. I
Please.
appreciate the question, and I wear 2 hats in my day. I work for the ASU Foundation, but I also serve as a City of Tempe council member. And I see partnerships, as Max mentioned, as critical. Your question was about the Biden-Harris administration and support of HSIs. Why is that? How has that been impactful? Absolutely. Direct support has been impactful for the universities, for ASU. But it's also indirect impact of the other acts, the CHIPS Act, these others, because you create a future and you create opportunities for these students to see. As our city manager mentioned, I was a first-generation college student also. My parents were immigrants also. So I'm not too far from this story. And there had to be a future and a pathway. And these other indirect acts of support are critical also. It's another partnership, and it creates the opportunities for students to be able to look forward to. I work with many private donors who create scholarships for our students to attend ASU. And they provide opportunities for research. Often, many of our first-gen students have to work while going to school, which takes away from other extracurricular experiences that would make them even more marketable and successful post-graduation. But our partners recognize the need for that workforce development and that feeling of belonging, that they have a place at the table also. And all of those acts, both direct and indirect, are critical.
Thank you. This is a really rich conversation. I mean, it's abundantly clear to me how in depth you have thought about these things. Your willingness to like make sure that there's no elephants under the table; they're squarely on the table. No, that's really important. I mean, it's I don't want this to be happy talk, where we pretend that everything is perfect and just pat ourselves on the back. That's not what this week of marking and reflecting on the role of Hispanic serving institutions is about. It's about getting off the dance floor and onto the balcony, asking ourselves, where were we, where have we come, and where do we need to go? What gives us hope, and what keeps us up at night, and how do we make sure that those things that keep us up at night are things that we are explicitly addressing. And for the president and the vice president, yes, this is a week, but they really do believe that every week needs to be HSI week, and every week needs to be the week where we are focused on that equity North Star. That's what it is about. And so I guess I would ask for anyone's consumption that last question. What does give you hope, and what does keep you up at night? And, Vice Mayor, I wanted to give you an opportunity because you have been a trailblazer in your own right. And it's been one of the privileges for me of coming to Arizona as many times as I have come, has been the privilege, and I underscore privilege, of building relationships in Indian country and tackling together many of the challenges. So while we've been focused on HSIs, we are focused more broadly on opportunities for everyone.
Well, I appreciate the conversation that we're having, and I really back up a lot of the things that everybody else has already said, but I think from the Native American community, I like to say that I'm proud that my mom went to college at NAU, but it was a really difficult thing for her to do. And one of the things that she did when we moved to Tempe was she started working with students at ASU, specifically with Native American students, to try to make them feel more comfortable when they got to the school here. And one of the hardest things for kids coming off of the reservation is it's the first time that they've been away from family, and so it is very uncomfortable for them when they get here. They feel very lonely. So my mom, what she did is tried to find ways to help people feel more comfortable. Now, we did have a lot of kids that showed up at our house for dinners on the weekends, that she would bring home students just to give them home-cooked meals. But I think trying to find that transition is really important because the education is important. And I'm looking at the proclamation that President Biden signed and put together, and the first thing is education is a ticket to a better life. It truly is a ticket to a better life. People need to have better access to that. I appreciate the scholarships that we were all talking about. I do think that really that's the important thing for us is trying to find ways to be able to get more scholarship programs available to students. It is not equitable out there. And if you look at the majority of the people that are on the tribal communities, there's a lot of people that do not have the money, cannot afford the college path. And so having those better opportunities and more opportunities for scholarships to be able to help those students, I think, is really important. But I do appreciate what the Biden-Harris administration has done so far. I still think there's a lot of work that we can do in that area. Again, the workforce area is really important. The city of Tempe has a great program called Career Ready program, and it's working with high school students and then works with helping them understand what the next steps are and what the workforce programs can be for them. We get paid internships for them with businesses here in Tempe, and then we also work with them with the colleges. So I think programs like that is super helpful. That starts with the high school. So I think that's something that we can work on expanding and maybe working with other partners. We have a scholarship program with Chicanos por la Casa. We get a scholarship to a high school student every year. We give that out at our neighborhood event at Kiwanis Park, which is a great event to attend. So continued events like that, I think, are really important.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Others? Yes, Councilmember.
So I'm going to go with one of those, what keeps me up at night. And I love hearing about all of the great programs and everything that everybody is doing. But what I would like, help with on just not just a local level, but like a federal level is how do we take back the narrative of what an HSI is, what is DEI? Because I think that the people who are opposed to these programs have done a fantastic job of just disseminating so much misinformation as to what these programs are doing to the point where when I go in and knock on doors and people start just complaining about DEI programs, they don't know what they are. They have, a specific set of talking points in their head that they've been given from people who are opposed to these programs. And so how do we help you and how can you help us kind of take back that narrative and take back that take back the misinformation that's out there, because it's difficult to, ask to promote more programs like these, to put more funding in them when we're spending so much of our time basically paying defense on what these programs actually are.
Thank you for sharing. You've been looking at my notes.
All right,
I will address that at the end.
Can I have one thing to say that's good, positive, not coming out again. The fact that the city of Tempe in our pre-K program, it starts the basis. I think when you start off on the right foot, it helps you to continue. It's data. I know everybody says data, but anybody can tell. Any child who starts off in Head Start or pre-K has a higher advanced chance of going into a college. I think that we've done a remarkable, well done job of that in pre-K, but I worry that if it's not done on a national level, any council members or mayor could come in after us and undo the process of what we have done in our city. So I think that we have to take it to a national level. And I know that the Biden administration and Harris administration has been very, they've been pushing that issue, but I think we have to, as elected officials, all of us, college, every level, we have to get pre-K, Head Start programs for all of our students. I think that's what starts them off on the foundation.
Thank you.
To the question about what keeps us up at night, in our college, it's the mental health struggles that our students are facing. And I think a lot of that is, obviously a result of COVID. But, when we're thinking about digital learning and the number of students who are, they're a one computer household and everybody needs to do digital learning and there's just not enough equipment available for a household, forcing students to keep their cameras on when their entire family's in the background living their lives because they're going home during COVID, et cetera. We have a really great partnership with Mesa Public Schools. We just launched a master's in counseling program to specifically help with K through 12 students to address that mental health crisis. So thank you to Mayor Giles for being a good partner in that. And our students are really struggling, and we have to find ways to not only help them achieve academic success, but to kind of, to foster that sense of belonging as well, to Doreen's point, and then to also make sure that our students are able to succeed on their own terms and in consideration of everything that they're going through.
What everybody has said, one more thing. We've known through work on community, belonging, some of the things that my colleagues have described, what works. I'm excited about the fact that we have such a large digital, number of students, but I'm also concerned that we want to learn how to reproduce that community and that networking. Now, as we see, for example, we have only 9% of our graduate students are Hispanic, but 17 on campus, but 17% of the ones in digital are Hispanic. We now have more Black undergraduates on digital than in campus. So my concern is how are we engaging in that future thinking of how are we going to create that belonging and those community networks on digital? And I think, we're doing some great things, but I think that's a big challenge for us for the future.
Could I have one
Yeah.
thing?
Oh, sure.
I know I'm preaching to the choir in this room, but we've had this experience over the last 4 years of trying to launch a College Promise program, and we were initially very nervous about getting the funding for it. And so what we've come to learn is that funding is not the problem, it's getting folks to take advantage of it. And so my point is FAFSA completion. We are not doing a good job as a region or as a country or as a state of getting FAFSA, getting kids to take advantage of the resources that are there. So somehow we have to figure that out. as I walk around the campus at Mesa Community College, I know 90% of the kids that are there, if I sat down with them and pulled out the FAFSA, they'd qualify. And they'd be receiving, you know, the community college, the city funding and the other funding that's available. So hopefully we all can figure out how to get that, just a common thing for every family when they have a kid in high school. On their kitchen table is the FAFSA application.
Could just add something really quickly. Something that keeps me up at night. I think a really huge win, not just for the community that it's for, but for the entire state of Arizona, was Prop 308, which gave in-state tuition to our undocumented students in the state who are community members here. They've grown up here, they contribute here, and they plan to contribute after they graduate. And I think this has been a large community that now that they're able to go to college and it's more accessible, it's a larger conversation to think about how we're supporting them in our institutions while they're in school and after they graduate. A lot of students don't have work authorization, so we're missing out on the talent of folks who are graduating with engineering degrees, who really want to contribute to our country. And so I know that there's a lot of things and pathways right now of the D1 waivers and advanced parole and some great pathways there, but I do think that this needs a larger discussion on a national level.
Thank you. Max, did you want to? Okay. Thank you so much. I don't know where to start. I guess I'll start here, which is it's really important in life to understand the moment you're living in. Because if you don't understand the moment you're living in, you don't meet the moment. And right now, and this HSI Reflection Week is one of them, but it's by no means the only one. We are living in a moment of, as I said before, both, you know, remarkable sets of challenges, you know, to on so many levels, including but not limited to our democracy as we know it. I'll put those aside for purposes of this conversation. But it's really important to understand that we're in the throes of unprecedented investments in so many of the basic building blocks that we need to succeed in everything you've articulated. You know, if you don't have high-speed quality internet in your home, you know, I've heard the discussions about distance learning. Well, you know, to the council member's point, you know, you look at disparities in access to quality high-speed internet, and not surprisingly, they are disproportionately falling in communities of color and in rural communities, and those are often overlapping. And you know, the president and the vice president have committed to making sure that we have quality, affordable, high-speed internet everywhere over the next 10 years. It's a big deal because internet is like water. It's an essential public utility that needs to be affordable and accessible to everyone. We all know the pandemic and the people who got in a car and would drive to the strip mall to try to access somebody's internet. And so I use this as an example because you know, the unprecedented access to, you know, HSI funding through the investment. You know, I always say that budgets are moral documents. If someone comes to your city and they ask you, is this a priority? And you say yes, then my follow-up question is always, can I see your budget? Because that tells me whether you're putting your money where your mouth is. You look at what the president and the vice president are doing right now on HBCUs, on HSIs, in the in loan forgiveness. And, you know, I was a Pell Grant kid. So, you know, I had an educational mortgage. And, you know, it was, you know, my car I had when I graduated from school, it didn't go in reverse. Every time I filled it, I had to put a quart of oil in it. You know, when you talk about, you know, paid internships, you know, like if someone asked me, hey, you want to go work at, you know, the Democratic National Committee, I was saying, great. For free? Hell no.
That's right.
No can do. That's right. Okay? And so, you know, all of these things, there is a remarkable amount of opportunity available. I urge you to meet that moment and to make sure, some of your most valuable people in your organization are your grants people. And you mentioned about our work in local governments. I firmly believe that, this is where the rubber hits the road. And, the American Rescue Plan was local government's best friend because it was a relationship of trust. We were saying to you, you have your finger on the pulse. We had many relationships with our nonprofit partners because you have the finger on your pulse to help communities in need. And so those relationships continue and those investments continue. This isn't, some people, past electeds talked about infrastructure week. We're in the middle of an infrastructure decade. And actually in the middle is probably not that accurate. We're really in the, we're in the middle of the second quarter maybe of our infrastructure decade because there is that much more to do. And that includes, but isn't limited to the Inflation Reduction Act, which is just a whole new paradigm of opportunity to do remarkable things, not just for public sector, but for the private sector. Because while it was federally written, it's private sector driven. Every dollar of federal money spent is matched by about $8 to $9 of private sector investment. And so we want to make sure that every community can benefit from this. But implicit in a number of your observations, we have to acknowledge some dark clouds that are hovering overhead. One of the people whose jurisprudence I used to teach when I taught in a law school when I had hair was Justice O'Connor. And when she authored the Grutter versus Bollinger decision in 2004, which upheld the use of race-conscious admissions policies in higher ed, she said something that you have all said today, which is that pathways to opportunity need to be meaningfully accessible, not just to a narrow minority, but to everyone. And one of the most compelling amicus briefs that was submitted in that case that swayed the court substantially was submitted by members of the military, the Colin Powells of the world, who said, if we want to have a military that is going to be a good fighting force, we need to make sure that pathways to leadership within the military are meaningfully accessible. And that's not social engineering, that's operational necessity. And in doing Prop 308 here, you had a similar observation. This isn't, yes, it's the right thing to do, but it's the smart thing to do. It's the essential thing to do. And one of the many, many things I admire about your communities, plural, is how you come together. It's not a Republican or a Democratic issue. This is a community issue. And I want to thank you, John Giles. I've thanked him publicly before. I will thank him again. Muchísimas gracias por su liderazgo en muchas áreas de oportunidad para todos. Es muy, muy importante que la comunidad entiende bien que hay personas aquí en gobierno, republicano y demócrata, que entiende bien que nuestro futuro tiene que envolver toda la gente, blanco, African American, Native American, Asian American, inmigrantes. And you understand in this state that our immigrants are a source of strength. And I appreciate that. And that's one of the things we need to celebrate. And that's why, Mayor, I'm so glad we're in your city, because this council is a proof point. And thank you, council member, for bringing up what you brought up, because that's one of the elephants in the room. There are attacks on this. And what I always say is this isn't about social engineering. This is about operational necessity. And when the president issued his executive order on equity, it wasn't simply racial equity. It is geographic equity. It's making sure that People who haven't had the privileges and opportunities of others, whether you are white or non-white, have opportunity. And that's what we need to make sure we communicate now and in the months and years ahead, because you here in Arizona, the fourth largest Latino population in the country, are setting a remarkable example, not only at ASU, but in the 19 or 20 community colleges that are all very frequently feeding in. And whether it's Apache County, or whether it's Maricopa County, or whether it's Pima County, or Coconino County, we need to make sure that we are making these investments everywhere, and we are setting that tone that you set in these communities. And so I really want to say thank you to all of you for what you're doing day in and day out. This is not a conversation about Republicans and Democrats. This is a conversation about people, making sure we help them. And that's what you're doing day in and day out. Because when we help everyone, and when we help folks, and when we meet them where they are, that's how we can succeed. And that's exactly what you're doing. So, muchísimas gracias. And I want to give the last word to the mayor of our host city.
Well, thank you, Director. Really appreciate you coming out here to spend the time with us here in Tempe this morning. I appreciate your department, but your personal and the Biden-Harris administration, their personal commitment to all of the principles and values that we've talked about this morning. We really want to say thank you for giving us this time, and for really encouraging a very kind of open, free-flowing conversation. As you said, it's not a happy talk conversation. We're talking about very difficult issues, about a lot of the great work that's already going on, but some of the work that we need to continue to do in the future to keep the positive momentum going. But I want to also thank each and every one of you here. You are all very important people sitting around this table with very busy, packed schedules. So we really appreciate you taking the time this morning to share your thoughts and insights with us. And together, we're going to continue to make this country better for each and every person who lives here. So, Director, thank you so much again. Really appreciate it. And thank you, all of you, for attending this morning. Thank you.